Good morning, and welcome to another edition of Saturday Morning Coffee Talk. Today, we're going to talk about what's going on in the world and what you need to know for 2026. We're going to cover Trump, the dollar, and how that might affect the markets going forward. So let's start by looking at the political volatility we've seen recently. Now, I'm not here to tell you whether one side's right or one side's wrong. I'm just here to give you some facts of the situation and how markets are expected to react to that. Now, the most recent volatility we've seen is Trump trying to take over Greenland. Now, we have to remember when we think about President Trump, he shoots for the moon, he says the craziest thing he can think of at any time, and then he typically ends up settling for something much less. We started by saying we would take Greenland by force if they didn't sell it to us, and now we've come to a framework of a deal that sets up a golden dome, a military base in Greenland, similar to the one we have in Israel, the Iron Dome. Now, you got to remember when you're looking at this stuff, a lot of the noise out there is just that. It's noise. When news broadcasts became 24 hours, they are no longer news anymore. They are now an entertainment network. Keep that in mind when you're watching the news, and to be honest, I would tell you, stop watching the news altogether. But what we can expect out of the markets when we see things like this is short-term volatility. Businesses are out there to make money no matter what the political environment they're in. Yes, are we going to see some short-term moves here and there day to day? For sure. But keep in mind that those are short-term and we're looking out to the long term when we're doing investing. A question we've gotten a lot recently is, will the dollar remain the world's reserve currency? You've heard a lot of buzz about it. I don't really understand the buzz, and I'll tell you why. The US dollar will always be the world's currency. And why I say that is we're one of the very few countries that have all three: personal property rights, a rule of law, and a functioning democracy. Now, I'm not here to argue with it whether you think it's functioning right now or not, and I'm not here to argue whether 4 years ago it was functioning or not. But what I can tell you is it's functioning every single 4 years, because if you don't like the person in there now, you can get rid of them 4 years from now. But the biggest thing that keeps the United States dollar the world's reserve currency is our long-term stability. We're the only country in the world that doesn't actively manipulate our currency. You see China all the time. That's thrown out there as they might be the world's reserve currency. They manipulate the yen at will because they're a communist country and they can. We don't have that luxury. China actually buys a lot of our bonds because everyone else in the world views the US as the safe haven. So until that changes and something drastic switches with our Constitution, we will always be the world's reserve currency. What we continue to hear is, but this time is different. I'm here to tell you this time isn't different. This is a chart of the S&P 500 over the last 55 years and all of the events that occurred in relation to where the stock market was at the time. Every single time an event like this occurred, we said, but this time is different. And the stock market continues to go. And I'll tell you why. Companies are out there to make money. They don't care what's going on in the world for the most part. They don't care what politics or who's in the White House. They're out there to make money. Companies survive and adapt because they're there to make money. So when you think this time is different, I caution that thinking because we've seen tons of this time is different over the last 55 years, and these are just a snippet of what's happened. And, the markets continue to go up. So I'll leave you with this. I read an article recently that had talked about how we're so used to normalcy in everyday life. We pay our mortgage every month. We go to work every day. We get paid every 2 weeks. And that stuff all occurs. Well, the stock market isn't like that. It moves day to day. It has to. Things change, things happen. But we know over the long term, we're better off to just stay invested, stay disciplined, and keep our eye on the ball. So with that said, if you're struggling with any of these ideas or want to discuss them further, feel free to reach out. But keep in mind, that's what we're here for. We're here to keep your eye on the ball, and we will continue to keep our eye on the ball for you. Have a great day.